Hello. Welcome to day 3 of From Blender to FiveM. I am so excited to continue on with this series. You guys are amazing, and I'm so happy that many of you are finding this series helpful. Today, we are going to dive into creating our first basic structure for an actual house. I hope you are ready. If you are, let's go. Okay, so now that we are back in Blender, we are going to create our first scene. I'm going to first start off by showing you how to add objects, meshes to your scene viewport layout. Okay, so basically, in order to add a new mesh, we've deleted the cube in our last video. Now we're going to bring something, whether it's a cube or a cylinder, a sphere, a shape. We're going to bring that mesh in and begin to create our scene. So basically, we're going to create just a house on a street. Surrounded by trees and a little bit of maybe cars, lights, things like that. Nothing too much, but yeah, here we go. Okay, so in order to add a scene, a mesh to your scene, what you have to click is Shift and A in order to bring up this menu right here. So you want to go to Mesh, and we are going to add a plane. But before you do that, let's just go over what we have here. And I'll just talk about what I know that I use most of the time when creating an MLO. I use the plane, I use the cube, I don't use the circle. I have not used the circle at all, but I might start. But I do use a plane, a cube, UV sphere, and I use cylinder mainly. I can see myself using the icosphere and the circle and the cone. Maybe, and I also use the torus. I did use the torus when I was creating Flawless Salon. But just, these are the things this is what I use to create my MLOs. And so let's just get started. Okay, so we're going to add a plane first. And with this plane, this is going to be our ground. What I would like to do, we're going to start off by scaling this ground. I don't have a specific number in mind or a specific size. I just know that I need it to be bigger. Okay, so I'm going to press scale, and I'm going to scale on the Y. Maybe let's say about there. Okay, and then I'm going to press S again, and we're going to scale on the X axis, and let's just say about there. Let's scale on a Y just a little bit more. All right, okay. Let's make sure we are okay, perfect. I just want to get to the front orthographic view, and let's scale on the X a little bit more to get closer to that square shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I just want to make sure it's big enough for us to create something. I might end up going a little bigger. Actually, yeah, let's just go bigger. I'm not going to scale on X and Y. I'm just going to go bigger. But I did that so that you could I did that so that you could get practice scaling, okay? When I initially was scaling on the X and Y. We're going to say that this is big enough, okay? Obviously this isn't size for a video game or anything like that. We are just practicing modeling. What I want to do to this ground what I'm going to do is press tab. Well, I like to press tab. Keyboard shortcuts are your friend in Blender. However, you don't have to press tab. If you maybe you forget that if you press tab, it'll take us into edit mode. See right here, it switched from object mode to edit mode. But you can also just go here to the drop down and select edit mode. What I'm going to do next is extrude. I'm introducing something new to you that I haven't spoken about just yet. And what we're going to do is extrude this plane up on the Z axis so that we can solidify the floor and make it actually three-dimensional. Okay, so what we're going to do is press E to extrude, and it already has it set up for the Z axis. If you press E again, well, there's actually no other way for this to go actually, but sometimes if you press E twice, it'll allow you to extrude freely. But because this is a plane, there's absolutely nowhere to go but up or down. I should maybe like right there. If you tab back into object mode, you can see now we have a flat surface that is more than a piece of paper. It doesn't look like a piece of paper anymore. If you want to, there is no set thickness that you have to do. This is strictly practice, you guys, and learning. All right, so now that we have our ground, let us we can do this two ways. Let's start with bringing in another mesh, and it's just gonna be a cube. Okay, so what we're gonna do is Shift A. We're gonna make sure you're in object mode, because if you're in edit mode, it won't add it separately, it'll add it to this plane. So if I go to edit mode and I do Shift A and I add a cube, you notice that this plane here, that it doesn't say that anything was added. So if we Control Z to get rid of that, and we go into object mode, we press Shift A and then we add the cube, then it populates here, so it lets you know that you have a cube here. If for any reason you are in edit mode and you add another mesh while in edit mode, what you can do, let's just bring this up for a second. I'm going to press G and Z so I can just bring it above the floor so that we can see the full cube. What you can do, like say you want to separate this and put it in its own category, give it its own label, separate it from this plane mesh, or what this is now some sort of a cube. If you want to separate it from this, what you can do is make sure you have the entire cube selected. So if you hover over it and you press L, it'll link and select every side of the cube for you. You can also just select it and press Shift and go around until the full cube is selected. But to make things easy, you can just hover over it and press L. This only works when you have added an additional mesh to your viewport, and when it's not necessarily something that you just pulled and disconnected from this object right here. It only works if you add a new mesh, hovering over it and pressing L. Okay, so back to what we were saying. If you want to separate this, if you accidentally add it, or if you get far in your creation and you decide, hey, I don't want this to be a part of this object anymore, I want it to be its own separate object, what you can do is select the mesh that you want to separate and press P, and it'll bring up another menu where it says separate, and you can say separate by selection, and now it is separated. So if you go back into object mode, you have two separate objects. It's just still calling it plane one. You can name it whatever you want it to be. Okay. I could have just deleted that this in general. That's what I'm trying to do, so that I can just get back to what we were just doing. You can say when you when we are deleting stuff, when you're deleting in edit mode, you will see a lot more than what you see when we're in object mode. So if you press X in object mode, all you see is delete, and you only have the option to delete the full object. But however, when you're in edit mode and you have something highlighted and you press X to delete, it brings up more things. You can say delete vertices, delete edges, faces, and it will delete those according to what you have selected. So I'm just gonna say delete faces. Okay, so let's move forward. The next thing that we're gonna just continue to make our house. And the way we're gonna do that is Shift A. We are gonna do it in object mode. I just like to add. I try to add things in object mode unless it's specifically I need to add it in edit mode, just to keep everything clean and separated. In the end, you can join everything if you want also. Okay, so let's just add a cube. We're going to raise it up. But what we're gonna do is snap it to this surface. So if we go up here, there's a tool right here. It's called our snap tool. It's like it functions like a magnet. If you turn it on, right, and then you press G and hover over a surface, well, let's actually select face. You have the snapping tool turned on, and then you come here to this drop down arrow, and then you go down to select face. Okay, and if you press G and you hover over the face that you want it to snap to, it'll snap to it. So now it is flush with the floor. Okay, and actually let's go. I like to see it a lot brighter. I went to material mode. I guess I can go over that before we build this house, low poly house. Okay, so right here I switched from the shading, viewport shading, to the material, viewport material. So this one it's like, it's basically showing the meshes without any material on them, so they appear gray. If you go to material, there is no material texture to it, but I just like it because it's a little bit brighter. But you can use whichever one you want. So you might see me switching in between these, and this is the render mode. So when you're ready to maybe take a photo or render your creation, you would put your lights and set up your scene accordingly. But we are here. There's also wireframe mode, in which will allow you to see through objects and select a lot more points or faces that you possibly can't see when you are in this mode or this mode. So if I can literally select this whole thing just like that because I'm in this mode. Okay, so let's go here. I just want to be in this so I can see things. All right, just have to make sure we're on the front side. Let us construct this house out of this cube. How do we do that? I'm gonna turn off snapping for now. That we have our ways. Let's tab into edit mode. I'm gonna keep face select mode on. Face select mode, it allows you to select the faces individually, where the edge mode allows you to select the edges individually. Yeah, and then you have vertex select mode, which allows you to select the vertices individually or group them together. But let's just stick with the face select for now. what we're going to do is place our house. Where do we want our house? We can actually we don't have to turn snap it back on. We are going to move this cube around according to, excuse me, by use of the axis. Okay, so let us select this cube by hovering over it and pressing L to link it, so it grabs all of the faces. And then we're going to press G and Y to move along the Y axis, right? So it's going to stay snapped to the floor, but we're just going to move it back a little. And then I think that is fine. Let us, choose one of the sides. Actually undo that. If you know, well, I'll just show you both ways. When we move things around in edit mode, we move them away from the object's point of origin. Does that make sense? So when we rotate, if I were to rotate this cube right now, it would, hold on. It would rotate around the object's point of origin, but it won't rotate. If you notice that it's not rotating in place, it's rotating around this orange dot. We don't want that, especially when you start going to map your MLO and then you spawn it in and you're like, where is it? Because it's not in front, not where you think it should be spawned, because the point of origin is off. You can reset it by right clicking on the cube or your mesh and then going to set origin, and then you can do origin to geometry, and then it'll pull it back. If we go back into, we're in object mode already, it'll start to rotate around itself now. So if you're moving things when you're in edit mode, just keep that in mind, that you need to move your origin point back to the geometry, the mesh, so that everything rotates like it should. Everything scales like it should. Okay. But for now, we've already moved it, so we can continue to expand this cube while in edit mode. We are going to select the left side. Okay. We can do this two ways. I'm going to show you two ways to do this. Scale this how we want it. So we're gonna first start off by selecting the left side of the cube, and what we're gonna do is press G. We're not gonna do like the traditional press S to scale. We're just gonna press G, and then we're going to press X to move along the X axis. So G, X, and then we're gonna move, stretch it along the X axis. Okay. It's kind of big. I might end up making it a little smaller, but let's go to the right side now and do the same thing. We're not looking for precision, we're just reshaping this. Press G and then X to move it along the X axis, right? Like, this don't look like a house, it look like a lone trailer. Okay, just bear with me, it's coming, I promise you. So we did the sides. Now let's do the front side of the house. Gonna do the same thing. Well, actually, we're not gonna do the same thing. What we're going to do is, just for learning purposes, this is what we're gonna do. Let's just select the whole object by hovering over and pressing L. This time we're going to use the scale tool to expand the house along the Y axis. So what I want you to do, again, hover over the object and press L to select all sides. Then I want you to press S, but then after you press S, I want you to press Y, and we're going to scale this along the Y axis, and boom, it was much faster, right? I know. So this house is going to have two sides, and this actually is going to end up coming over. But what we're going to do before we can go on and do the top. Actually, let's just select the top surface of the house, and you're going to press G and then Z to move along the Z axis, and then just raise the house up to like right there. Okay. And then what I want you to do is hover over this again and press L, and then we're going to duplicate it. Okay. Duplication is your friend. We're going to duplicate it, and we're also, yes, we're going to duplicate it in edit mode. Just keep in mind when you are doing these things that you are doing it with a purpose. Just know that if you duplicate in edit mode, it's going to remain within this cube. It won't be separate. It will remain in this cube. Just like when you add a new mesh while in edit mode, it will remain with the previous, attached to the previous mesh that you were working on. Okay. All right. So let's duplicate this by pressing Shift and D at the same time. It is there. I haven't moved, but it is there. And what we're going to do is move along the y-axis. So before moving, press Y and then move your mouse forward. Okay. So now you have two rectangles. With this second rectangle selected, what I want to do is rotate it 90 degrees. So we're going to press R to rotate. We're going to rotate along the Z axis. So press Z to rotate along the Z axis, and then type 90 and hit enter, or you can click on the screen, but I'm just going to hit enter just so I don't, do anything extra. All right. What I would like to do is now select this side of the first mesh, and we're going to move it back in because, I am just creating this as I'm making this video. I didn't know what kind of house I was going to make. So click on the right side again. We're just going to move this back in. What I want you to do is press G, and we're going to move along the X axis. So press X and just come back into lay right there, right? And then I want you to select this second rectangle, and we're going to move it again. So I want you to press G, Y. We're going to move along the Y axis, and we're just going to move it back. Let's go to the top down view. Remember, if you hold Alt while you are panning, it'll snap it for you. Okay. Or you can press the the numpad to find the top down view. Okay. So we're going to do our best to just line it up. G on the Y axis. Doesn't have to be extremely perfect. But I am a perfectionist, so let's let's do it. Okay, so now we're gonna move it along the X axis. So we're gonna press G and X, and we're gonna move it to like right here. All right. It's not perfect. This house isn't perfect right now. If you come out of that view, you will see that it's not there are walls here. This isn't an ideal house, but we're not going to worry about those extra walls. It's bothering me. Is that we'll leave it. It's not too important. Let us expand on this ground, and we're just going to make it bigger. All right. Let's go back. Actually, let's go here because let's go back to object mode and select our object. And let's just move it and place it how we might want it. So just press L, hover over, press L, hover over this one. Also press L to select both at the same time. And we are going to just move. Let's move along the X for a second. Let's give us some space, and then let's move along the Y. I guess we can work with that. All right. So we're going to go back to object mode so that we can hold up. Wait a minute. Let's set the origin again. You gotta do it in object mode actually. So origin to geometry. Alright, so when you rotate, it's rotating like it should. Alright. let's go. So what we're gonna do next, why is this giving like it's not snap to this face? Hold on. Okay, now it's up. Okay, that was weird. Let's just move this back again to where we were. GY GX. Sorry, y'all. It was like under the ground. I didn't want it to be on under the ground, so I had to snap it back to the surface. Okay. Okay, that is where the placement of our house, right? We don't have a door. We don't have any windows. But let's create those. Okay, let's create a door. What I need you to do is press Shift A. Shift A, and we're gonna add a cube. And it is back at our center of the at the center of our world. Press GZ to rise it up. Let's scale it on the on the Z axis to just make it a little taller, like that, right? And then we're going to scale along the X axis just to make it a little wider. And then we're gonna scale on the Y axis to make it skinny. It don't have to be extremely skinny. But let us snap to this face. Turn that on. I'm gonna snap it to this face. It should be up against the wall, right? At the same time, we are going to snap it to the floor and to the wall. Perfect. Typically your door is not on the outside, so let's turn that off. I just want to get it as close as possible. We're gonna move it back. Press G and Y to keep it on the floor, and we'll just put it like right there. All right, so that's where our door is. Again, we are doing some very basic things, you all. Typically when you create your door, you want it to have a frame. So let's create a frame. So how do we do that? We add another mesh, and what is it going to be? A cube. And then we're going to raise it up, and then we're going to scale it to make it skinny. Scale it again, right? Let's scale it along the Z axis. That might be a little too big, but it's okay. I'm gonna snap it. We're gonna snap it here just to get it closer. The closer I get to you, the more you make me feel. Just know when you're scaling in object mode, it's scaling the whole thing, and it's not scaling like according to like the snapping it to the floor or anything like that. Just keep that in mind when you're working. I still have my snapping on, so because I have snapping on, this allows me to do what I need to do. There are different ways you can make this door and frame, but we're going to do it this way, and then when we make the window, I'll show you another way that you can make a frame without having to like duplicate, because we're about to duplicate this a couple of times. Let's scale this on the Y, just make it bigger just so it'll go through, and then let's move it along the Y. Hold on, turn snapping off. Move it along the Y just a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. What we're gonna do is duplicate this. Duplicate it, Shift D, and then move it along the X, and boom. Again, it does not have to be perfect. We're gonna duplicate again, Shift D, move it on the Z, so like right there. Then we're gonna rotate it along the Y 90 degrees. Press enter. We're going to scale along the X just to make it a little smaller. Then we're going to move it along the X, right? And it's not big enough. Actually, let's move it up a little along the Z axis. And then we're going to scale it along the X. And there you go. There's your door frame. Very simple way to create a door frame. Let's add a door knob. Shift A again, and let's do, where is it? A UV sphere. GZ, raise it up. This is going to be the knob of the doorknob, obviously. Let's scale it. There's so many ways you can do this, but I guess for the sake of this, let's just do that. That's so simple. Usually I'll put a cylinder on the end of it. Let's put the cylinder on it so it'll actually look more like a doorknob. Shift A. Shift A and then cylinder. GZ to move it up. Right? We're going to scale this baby. We're going to scale along the Y. Okay, that is not what I meant to do. Go into edit mode really quickly. No. Scale along the Z. I'm like, what the heck? And then scale it to make it smaller. And we're going to rotate it on the X-axis 90 degree. RX 90. Enter. And then let's just come here. It's still selected, so when we get here, we can just snap it to the wall, the door. So just press G and boom. Let's move this out just, oh wait, hold on, let me turn off snapping. G away, move it out just a little bit. We can make this a little bigger. I don't have to be super small, but let me come out some. Well, actually that might be fine. And then turn on snapping again, and let's just do G. Like, just, you can do it. Okay, it doesn't want to snap how I want it, so let's turn snapping off and let's just move it ourselves. I just definitely freehanded that, so we can just be a little bit more precise. G, move it along the X-axis, and there we have it. Again, it's just very basic primitive things. You can edit this and be more precise yourself if you would like, but I'm just showing you. My goal is to just show you what is possible to do in Blender. So there's our door. All right, you all, so that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. In our next video, we are going to move forward with making the windows. And after that, we'll move into creating the surrounding trees, our pathways, and our street and our car. Bear with me, you guys. I know it might seem like we are moving at a slow pace, but I have to make sure, you hear me? I have to make sure, with all of the questions that I get, I have to make sure that I teach you everything that you need. That way, when we get to the process of actually making the MLO, you won't be lost and you won't be overwhelmed and you won't give up, because this is a tedious process. It might not be hard to do. Once you learn it, it's not difficult to understand, but it is tedious. Because all we're doing right now is creating a basic structure. Like, this isn't like when you look at flawless salon, you see sleek edges and then you see some curves and some things that might look a little bit more advanced. And it's not necessarily more advanced. It just takes time to create. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I will see you Monday. Bye.